The massive hall of the celestial spire buzzed with voices. Aliens of all shapes and sizes filled the room. Some had scales, others had tentacles, some floated in the air, while others needed special chairs to support their unusual bodies. This was the Galactic Council, where over 300 different alien species came together to discuss important matters. Greg Harmon sat stiffly in his chair. As Earth's ambassador, he represented all humans at this meeting. His blue uniform felt tight around his neck as he listened to the insect-like alien speaking at the front of the room. Greg had been a Navy captain before becoming an ambassador, and he knew when a storm was coming. The insect alien, council speaker Zix Toril, clicked his mouthparts together as he talked about Earth's request to join the galaxy's defense force. Humans want to help fight against the Void Scourge, Zix Toril said, waving his thin arms. They have offered their fleet to join our forces. While we thank them for their offer, their ships are— He paused, his antenna twitching. Let's just say, outdated. A large 3D image appeared in the middle of the room. It showed Earth's spaceships, big, bulky vessels with sharp angles and visible weapons. Next to them were images of alien ships that looked like art pieces, smooth, curved, and glowing with strange energies. Many aliens in the room started to laugh. Some tried to hide their amusement behind their hands or tentacles, but most didn't bother. Carol Weber, Greg's assistant, leaned close to him. "They're making fun of our ships," she whispered. Her face showed anger, but she kept her voice low. Greg nodded slightly. "They don't understand," he said quietly. "They've never had to fight wars like we have." A tall blue alien with 4 arms stood up. This was Counselor Elix from the Tricerian Dominion, one of the oldest alien civilizations. "Friends from Earth," Elix said in a smooth voice. "Your ships use engines that my people stopped using thousands of years ago. You still fire physical bullets and use chemical explosives. You don't even have quantum shields. How could such old technology possibly help against the Void Scourge?" More laughter filled the room. Greg felt his face getting hot, but he kept his expression calm. Across from him, Admiral Diane Rogers sat with her back straight. Her gray hair was cut short, and her face showed no emotion as the aliens laughed at Earth's fleet. She had commanded ships for 30 years and had fought in 3 space battles. She knew what these fancy aliens didn't. Real combat was messy, unpredictable, and rarely went according to plan. A blob-like alien rose from its seat. This was Counselor Nelvin of the Proxima Collective, a species that had evolved beyond having a fixed body shape. "Perhaps our human friends could help with supply lines or medical support," Nelvin suggested, its voice bubbling as it spoke. "They seem eager to help, but putting their simple ships on the front lines would endanger them and our battle plans." Greg watched as Admiral Rogers' hand tightened into a fist. He knew she was thinking of the 27 battles Earth forces had won against the Mars rebels, often while outnumbered. He thought of how human ships had defeated the Jupiter pirates despite their advanced stolen technology. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of discussion and thinly veiled insults, Greg was allowed to speak. He stood slowly, straightened his uniform, and faced the council. "We have heard your concerns," he said, his deep voice carrying across the hall, "but I think there has been a misunderstanding about what Earth brings to this alliance. Instead of arguing with words, we propose a practical test. Admiral Rogers has prepared a plan for a joint military exercise. Let our ships train alongside yours. Then you can see what we can really do." The room grew quiet. Some council members looked surprised that the humans weren't backing down. "A demonstration?" Zix Toril's antenna twitched rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. "You wish to compare your vessels directly with ours?" "Yes," Greg said simply. "Actions speak louder than words, as we say on Earth." The council members looked at each other. Some seemed amused, others curious. A few looked worried. "Very well," Zix Toril finally said. "In the spirit of cooperation, we will arrange this exercise. But I must warn you, Ambassador Harmon, that the Void Scourge has already destroyed civilizations with technology far more advanced than yours." Greg nodded respectfully but said nothing more. He had made his point. Later, as the human delegation walked back to their quarters, Admiral Rogers took out her communication device. Her face, which had remained expressionless during the council meeting, now showed a slight smile. "Get me Captain Frank Miller on the USS Defiant," she ordered. "Tell him to prepare his ship and crew. The show is about to begin." Carol walked beside Greg, her face still showing anger. "They treated us like children," she said. "Like we're some primitive species that just learned how to leave our planet." Greg shook his head. "They've forgotten something important," he said. "What's that?" Carol asked. "The most dangerous weapon humans have isn't our technology," Greg replied. "It's how we think." Admiral Rogers nodded in agreement. "They've been at peace too long," she said. "They build pretty ships with amazing technology, but they've forgotten that war isn't about who has the fanciest tools. It's about who can adapt fastest," Greg finished. "And humans have been adapting and overcoming challenges since we climbed down from the trees." As they reached their quarters, Greg looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Scourge was moving closer, destroying worlds as it came. The aliens might laugh at Earth's ancient fleet now, but soon they would understand why humans built their ships the way they did. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. "Get everything ready," Greg told Admiral Rogers. "We only get one chance to show them what humans can do." Rogers smiled, a determined look in her eyes. "Trust me, Ambassador. After our demonstration, no one in the galaxy will be laughing at human ships ever again." 3 weeks passed quickly. Now 16 of the best ships from the Galactic Council floated in the empty space of the Tau Ceti system. These ships were the pride of their civilizations. Beautiful, advanced vessels that seemed more like works of art than weapons of war. The Tricerian light cruiser, Quantum Dawn, glowed with a soft blue light. Its engines could bend the fabric of space itself. Nearby floated the Proxima Collective's ship, Harmonic Synthesis, a vessel that was actually alive, grown rather than built. The largest ship was the Veltraxian destroyer Infinite Edge, with weapons that could tear holes between dimensions. Against these marvels of technology, the humans had brought just 3 ships: the carrier USS Defiant, led by Captain Frank Miller, the battleship USS Resolute under Captain Samantha Wright, and the destroyer USS Vigilant commanded by Captain Alan Spencer. The human ships looked plain and bulky next to the alien vessels. Their hulls were dark gray metal with visible weapon mounts and antenna arrays. They looked like they were built for war, not for showing off. On the observation deck of the Galactic Council's diplomatic ship, Ambassador Greg Harmon and Admiral Rogers watched a large screen that showed all the vessels. Counselor Elix's face appeared on another screen as he addressed all the ship's captains. "Today's exercise will test our ability to defend against a Void Scourge attack," the blue alien explained. "We will pretend to protect civilian ships while defending against multiple enemy ships. As we agreed, the human vessels will participate." Alongside, suddenly, a loud alarm cut through Elix's words. The tactical officer on the diplomatic ship, a 6-armed alien, shouted with all 3 of its mouths. "Unknown ships approaching fast. Energy readings match the Void Scourge." Counselor Elix's blue skin turned almost white. "This is not part of the exercise," he yelled. "All ships prepare for battle. Form defense pattern Alpha 7. Greg turned to Admiral Rogers, who was already using her communication device. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Rogers," she said calmly. "Protocol Thunderbolt is now active. I repeat, Protocol Thunderbolt is now active." On the main screen, they watched as 7 Void Scourge ships appeared, out of nowhere. These ships looked nothing like the Council vessels or the human ships. They were like dark skeletons with jagged parts that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. They moved in strange patterns, as if they weren't bound by normal laws of physics. The Galactic Council ships moved quickly into their planned formation. Their engines flared with beautiful colors as they took their positions. Their weapons charged up, creating pretty patterns across their hulls like light shows. The human ships, however, seemed to move slowly. Their engines fired in short bursts as they moved into what looked like a random cluster rather than a proper formation. "What are your ships doing?" demanded Counselor Nelvin, the blob-like alien. "That's not a proper battle formation." Greg didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the screen, watching closely. The Void Scourge attacked without warning. A wave of dark energy spread out from their ships and hit the front line of the Council fleet. The Infinite Edge, the pride of the Veltraxian Navy, suddenly lost power to its shields as the dark energy somehow changed itself to attack the ship's weakness. As two Void Scourge ships moved toward the helpless Infinite Edge, the USS Vigilant suddenly shot forward. Its engines burned bright white as it placed itself between the attackers and their target. "They're going to sacrifice themselves," gasped Counselor Elix. But what happened next shocked everyone watching. The Void Scourge fired their main weapons, beams of strange anti-energy that had destroyed many advanced civilizations before. But when these beams hit the USS Vigilant, the ship's hull seemed to absorb the attack. "Kinetic absorption armor," Admiral Rogers explained calmly. "It works better against energy weapons than anything else we've made." The USS Vigilant then fired what looked like simple metal projectiles toward the Void Scourge ships. As these projectiles got closer to their targets, they split into hundreds of smaller objects, each changing direction on its own to avoid the enemy's defenses. "Smart munitions," continued Rogers. "Old technology, but it works when your enemy expects everything to be energy-based." The Void Scourge ships tried to adapt, but the munitions hit their hulls and exploded, causing real damage, something the Council weapons rarely managed to do. Meanwhile, the USS Defiant had launched what looked like small fighter ships. Greg and the Council representatives watched in amazement as human pilots manually flew their small craft directly at the enemy, performing moves that would have torn apart any ship using automatic systems or AI control. "How are they predicting where the Scourge will move?" asked Nelvin. "Their sensors can't possibly—" "They're not predicting," Greg interrupted. "They're reacting. A trained human brain can react faster than predictive computers when facing an adaptive enemy." As the battle continued, the cleverness of the human approach became clear. While the Council ships relied on advanced technology the Void Scourge had seen before and learned to counter, the human vessels used strategies and weapons that were considered outdated by galactic standards but were completely new to their enemy. The USS Resolute showed this most clearly when it fired what appeared to be a simple nuclear missile toward three Void Scourge ships clustered together. The Council representatives laughed at such a basic weapon, until the missile exploded and released not fire, but an electromagnetic pulse specifically designed to disrupt the Void Scourge's unique nervous system. Within 30 minutes, the surprise attack had been defeated. 4 Void Scourge ships had been destroyed and the rest had run away. The human fleet had taken damage, but all ships were still working. Several Council vessels, despite their vastly superior technology, had been badly damaged or destroyed as repair teams worked to fix the damaged ships. Captain Frank Miller's face appeared on the main screen of the diplomatic vessel. His face was dirty, with what looked like actual soot, and a small cut on his forehead was bleeding. "Council representatives," he said, looking tired but alert. "We request permission to chase the retreating Scourge ships. Our tracking systems have figured out where they're probably going." The Council members looked at each other, unable to speak from shock. "This was supposed to be a demonstration," said Counselor Elix finally, his voice weak. Admiral Rogers nodded. "It was," she said. "Just not the one we planned." She turned to Greg, who was watching the human ships already preparing to pursue the enemy despite their damage. "The real demonstration," Greg said quietly, "is what happens next." The battle changed everything. Now alien engineers and officers swarmed over the human ships like curious children with a new toy. They had stopped laughing and started asking questions. On the USS Defiant, Captain Frank Miller led a group of alien engineers through the ship's control center. The aliens looked at everything with new eyes, not with mockery but with wonder. "You mean your battle computers are not connected to your main computer system?" asked Chief Engineer Vrel Nax of the Trisarian Dominion. All 4 of his eyes blinked rapidly in surprise. "We call it compartmentalization," explained Lieutenant Sam Baker, who managed the Defiance systems. He pointed to the separate computer banks. "If one system gets hacked or damaged, the others keep working. We learned that lesson the hard way." during the Earth-Mars War of 2097. The alien engineers took notes and whispered to each other. They had never considered making their systems separate on purpose. To them, it seemed inefficient. But after seeing how the human ships had kept fighting when Void Scourge attacks shut down some of the alien vessels completely, they understood. In the ship's weapons room, Lieutenant Olivia Grant showed the visitors the different kinds of bullets, missiles, and bombs the ship carried. "But these are physical weapons," said a Veltraxian engineer with silver skin. "The materials needed to make so many different types would be—" "You can't hack a bullet," Olivia interrupted with a small smile. "And when your enemy can adapt to energy weapons, sometimes the simplest answer is the best one." The alien seemed confused, so Olivia picked up a small metal bullet from a display case. "This doesn't need computers to work," she explained. "It doesn't need power. It will still fire even if every system on the ship is down, and it can't be turned against us." Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council's diplomatic ship, Admiral Rogers stood before the gathered council members. She used a simple hologram projector to show recordings from the battle. "The Void Scourge has been studying your civilizations for hundreds of years," she explained. "They've learned how to counter your quantum shields, your reality-bending fields, and your neural link targeting systems, but they've never met a civilization that developed technology the way we did." "And what way is that, exactly?" asked Counselor Alex. Just a day ago, he had mocked human technology. Now he listened carefully to every word. Greg Harmon answered, "Necessity and fear, Counselor. For most of our history, humans fought each other. When we finally united and looked to the stars, we brought those hard lessons with us." He nodded to Admiral Rogers, who changed the hologram to show diagrams of the human ship's internal layouts. "Our ships aren't built around one amazing technology," Rogers continued. "They're built with thousands of years of military thinking. Backup systems, manual controls, spread-out command structures. We don't choose technologies because they're the most advanced, but because they're the most reliable in battle." "Counselor," Nelvin moved closer. His blob-like body rippled with interest. "But your engines, your weapons, they use so much more energy than our designs. They're not efficient." "Efficiency isn't everything in combat," Rogers replied. "Being able to adapt, having backups, being unpredictable, these matter more when fighting a smart enemy." She changed the display to show a comparison between human targeting systems and those used by the alien species. "Your targeting computers try to predict enemy movements using complex math," she said. "Ours combine simpler prediction with human instinct and experience. Against an enemy like the Scourge that can adapt, being unpredictable is an advantage." As she continued explaining, the council representatives began to understand the true nature of human military thinking. It wasn't that human technology was primitive, it was that it had developed along completely different lines, guided by a history of conflict that most council species had left behind long ago. Later that day, as Greg prepared to return to the human ships, Counselor Zixtorl approached him in a quiet corner. "Ambassador Harmon," the insect-like diplomat began, clicking his mouthparts thoughtfully, "I must admit that we badly misjudged your people." Greg nodded respectfully, but stayed silent. "There is something you should know," Zixtorl continued, lowering his voice. "The Void Scourge. They have been pushing deeper into our space each year. Our advanced fleets have been less and less effective against them. What happened today was not just bad luck." The counselor's compound eyes stared at Greg. "We need your ancient fleet, Ambassador. More than you realize." Greg wasn't surprised. He had suspected as much from the beginning. The Galactic Council was too proud to ask for help directly, but the situation must be desperate if they were willing to consider Earth's ships at all. "How bad is it?" Greg asked quietly. Zixtorl's antenna drooped slightly. "We've lost contact with 17 outer colony worlds in the past cycle. Our patrols find only empty planets where billions once lived." Greg felt a chill run down his spine. "And your best ships couldn't stop them?" "The Void Scourge adapts," Zixtorl explained. "Each time we face them, they're stronger against our weapons. They learn from each encounter. That's why our primitive ships worked," Greg realized aloud. They've never seen our technology before. Exactly, the counselor confirmed. But that advantage won't last forever. They'll adapt to your weapons too, given time. Greg thought for a moment. Then we need to share knowledge. Your advanced science combined with our practical battle experience. Meanwhile, Admiral Rogers was speaking with several alien military leaders. Unlike the politicians, these officers had quickly recognized the value of human military thinking. The problem isn't just technology, a Veltraxian fleet commander was saying. It's our tactics. We've been at peace so long that war has become theoretical for us. Our captains are scientists and diplomats, not warriors. Rogers nodded. We can help with that too. Joint training exercises, officer exchanges. We can teach your people how to think like soldiers again. One of the alien officers, a veteran who had fought the Scourge before, spoke up. What frightens me most about your ships, Admiral, is not your weapons but how your crews reacted when systems failed. When our primary systems go down, our crews often don't know what to do next. That's because we train for failure, Rogers explained. Every human crew member can do at least 3 different jobs on the ship. We run drills where we shut down all advanced systems and operate using only manual backups. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. As evening approached, Greg and Admiral Rogers met in a quiet observation room on the diplomatic vessel. Through the large windows, they could see repair crews working on both human and alien ships. How did the council react? Rogers asked. They're scared, Greg replied. The Scourge has been gaining ground. It seems our ancient fleet arrived just in time. Rogers looked out at the stars. It won't be easy. We'll need to adapt too. Learn their technology, incorporate what works for us. Greg nodded. And they need to learn our way of thinking. Their technology is amazing, but they've forgotten the basics of warfare. Do you think it will work? Rogers asked. This alliance? Greg watched as a team of human engineers helped repair a Tricerian vessel while alien technicians carefully studied the damage patterns on the USS Vigilant. I think it has to, he said quietly. For both our sakes. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, the grand chamber of the Celestial Spire was filled with representatives from across the galaxy again. But this time, the mood was completely different. Instead of laughter and mockery, there was respect and excitement. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Diane Rogers and Fleet Commander Samantha Wright, who had been promoted after her ship's brave actions in the first battle. Both wore their formal dress uniforms as they spoke to the assembled aliens. Behind them, a large holographic display showed a star map with pulsing red dots marking Void Scourge activity. Phase 1 of our joint operations is complete, Rogers announced. Human fleet units have been positioned at these 12 key points within Council space. Each human ship is paired with vessels from your civilizations. Commander Wright continued. Training programs are moving faster than we hoped. Council engineers are installing some of our defensive systems on their ships, while human vessels are being carefully upgraded with compatible alien technologies. The past 6 months had brought amazing changes in how humans and aliens worked together. What had started as dismissal and laughter had grown into real friendship and cooperation. In shipyards across Council space, new ships were being built that combined the best of both worlds. These vessels used the advanced science of ancient galactic civilizations, along with the practical, battle-tested designs that humans had perfected through centuries of warfare. Council officers trained side by side with human commanders, learning strategies developed during Earth's violent history. At the same time, human engineers studied technologies that their civilization might not have discovered for hundreds of years. Most importantly, Rogers continued, Void Scourge attacks have decreased by 73% in areas patrolled by joint human council teams. They're adapting to our presence, but much more slowly than we expected. After the formal presentation, a party was held in one of the Spire's beautiful observation rooms. Through the clear walls, guests could see a joint patrol of council and human ships practicing maneuvers in the distance. The elegant, flowing lines of alien ships moved alongside the sharp, angular human vessels, like dancers performing together. Greg Harmon found himself talking with a Tricerian admiral whose name meant something like starlight across still water in human language. Ambassador, the alien greeted him. I commanded the Quantum Dawn during the incident. I want to personally thank you for your destroyer captain's actions. Without the Vigilance help, my ship and crew would have been lost. Greg nodded respectfully. Captain Spencer was just doing his job, Admiral. Any of our officers would have done the same. Perhaps, the Tricerian acknowledged. But there is something I have wondered about. Your ships, they are not truly ancient technology, are they? They represent a different way of developing, one our civilizations never explored. Greg smiled slightly. In some ways, yes. While many council species developed toward greater automation and perfect efficiency, humanity stayed focused on practical combat effectiveness. Our violent history forced us to. The Tricerian made a gesture that meant thoughtful agreement. My civilization has known peace for so long that we forgot what real conflict means. We built ships to be perfect under ideal conditions, while you built yours to work in the worst conditions possible. Nearby, Lieutenant Sam Baker from the Defiant was teaching Earth chess to a group of fascinated alien officers. The game's focus on strategy, sacrifice, and thinking several moves ahead had become surprisingly popular among Council military personnel. The true strength of humanity, the Tricerian Admiral continued, is not your technology, but your way of thinking. You never stopped preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. As the party continued, Admiral Rogers joined Greg at the observation window. Together, they watched as a new type of vessel, the first ship designed through true human council collaboration, completed its test flight. They're calling it the Guardian class, Rogers noted. It has council energy systems and sensors, but human-style backup systems and compartmentalized design, and a mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. Greg nodded approvingly. Hard to believe that 6 months ago they were laughing at our ancient fleet. To be fair, Roger said with a small smile, our ships do look like something from their history museums. Function over form, Greg replied. Always has been our way. As they watched the new vessel complete its maneuvers, a priority message reached Admiral Rogers. Her expression grew serious as she listened to the report through her earpiece. Ambassador, she said quietly, long-range scouts have detected something. A void scourge fleet, larger than any we've ever seen, approaching from the edge of the galaxy. Greg's eyes remained fixed on the joint patrol. Then it's time to show them what humanity and the Council can achieve when we work together. He turned to face the assembled representatives of hundreds of worlds. These beings, who had once mocked humanity's contributions, now looked to Earth's officers for leadership in the coming war. Meanwhile, in another part of the celebration, Captain Frank Miller was demonstrating human tactical thinking to a group of young alien officers. He had set up a simple war game using pieces on a board. The key, Miller explained as he moved the pieces, is not to have the best individual units, but to have units that work well together and can adapt when things go wrong. A young Veltraxian officer raised her silver hand. But Captain, wouldn't it be more efficient to use the most advanced units available? Miller smiled. Watch this. He moved one of his advanced pieces into what looked like a winning position, then showed how it could be defeated by several primitive pieces working together. Sometimes simple and reliable beats fancy and complex. The alien officers nodded thoughtfully, finally understanding the human approach to warfare. Back at the observation window, more human and alien leaders had gathered. They could see ships from dozens of different species now working together, sharing knowledge and protecting each other. You know, said Commander Wright, joining the group. When we first came here, I thought we were just offering our ships to help. I didn't realize we were starting a revolution in how this galaxy thinks about defense. Greg watched as a human repair team helped fix an alien vessel, while alien technicians carefully installed new defensive systems on a human destroyer. We didn't just bring ships, he said. We brought a different way of thinking about problems. And they brought knowledge we could never have developed on our own. Admiral Rogers received another message. The joint fleets are assembling, she announced. All ships, human and council, are reporting ready for operation. Operation? Asked the Tricerian Admiral. We're not waiting for the Void Scourge to come to us, Rogers explained. We're going to meet them halfway, with the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Greg looked out at the stars where the future of the galaxy would be decided. They laughed at our ancient fleet, he said quietly. Until they saw what humans built, Rogers finished, and now they understand that sometimes the old ways combined with new knowledge create something better than either could achieve alone. As alarms began sounding to signal the fleet's departure, Greg felt a sense of pride. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by being the most advanced, but by being the most adaptable. The real test was about to begin. Them end.